quantifiable objectives are comparatively easy to set. So now we're going to look at the less easy to measure, those that relate to behaviours that you want to observe and the perceptions and the feedback of others. So you've so far identified a job and a job title. You've thought about the 5 key areas of responsibility. You've also, underneath each one of those key areas, identified the assessment criteria for that core area. And you've gone on and labelled each one of those assessment criteria items either Q, B, or P, depending on whether you see it as being measured best by a quantifiable measure, a behavioural measure, or a perceptive measure. You've then gone on and actually ticked those where you think there's already a good measurement in place, and we've come to the conclusion that for many of you, 65 to 75% of what you are wanting to measure in a person's performance is unclear. So now I want to volunteer because I want to look at how we actually get hold of one of these behavioural perception measures and write it up as a performance measure. Would anybody like to contribute on that? Duncan, thank you very much. What is the job title that you've been looking at?
Application programmer.
Application programmer. Okay, have a look at the key areas that you've identified and look for a B or a P item in one of those key areas. What would be the key area that you'd like to perhaps look at in more detail?
The ability to communicate programming problems verbally.
Okay, so that's what you want to assess, is that right?
Yeah.
The ability to
communicate programming problems verbally.
Verbally, okay. That's great. So the process I'm going to take you through requires you to think of someone that you know who does this really well. And then with your help, I'm going to bullet point what they do well so that we can communicate to every job holder in this job what it is they would need to do to succeed. So we're talking about the ability to communicate programming problems verbally. So, can you tell me, think of a person that does this really well. What do you see this person doing?
They explain things simply first before they get into the complexity.
Explain what sort of things?
For example, if we're looking at how to show a particular style in a page, they would explain what the different options are and the pros and cons of each of those options.
Okay. So they explain the pros and cons of programming options?
Yeah, exactly.
Of programming options. And you said simply. Can you tell me more about that? This word simply?
They would explain it in top-level terms first before getting into the nitty-gritty of precisely how it would be implemented.
In top-level terms first,
yes.
And then in the detail of how an option would be implemented?
Exactly.
And then in the detail of how an option would be implemented. Okay, fine. Tell me, what else do they do in verbally describing these problems? They've done that, that's the first bit that they've done.
They would probably give examples of other pages that show the different ways that have been done, so we can...
Okay. Of other pages, is that right?
Yeah.
Where a similar solution has been used?
Exactly.
A similar solution has been used. Okay. That's great. And then what?
And
Because obviously you want them to verbalise the problem, or is that just it? Or do you want them to use that verbalising of the problem to try and then solve the problem?
they would probably then ask for us to respond to that, to check that we understood the options.
So ask for feedback, what's this, from the customer? Is it, or from...
From other team members.
Ah, okay. Ask for feedback from other team members. Okay.
On
From other team members, yeah. On
which solution they favoured, and perhaps they had other suggestions.
okay, hang on. On which solution they favoured, yeah.
And if they also had any other approaches.
And if they had any other approaches. Any other approaches. Excellent, excellent. Okay. And then, finally what?
Agree on the best way forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And possibly divide up the tasks if
Okay.
one team member had a particular experience in one of those routes, they may take a lead on it.
Okay, and divide up tasks reflecting individual strengths, is that right?
Yes.
Reflecting individual strengths and experiences.
Yes.
Is that right? Individuals' strengths. Okay, that's great. My question to you now is, we've taken this idea, or this challenge, of measuring the ability to communicate programming problems verbally. So that's a pretty subjective area. And what we've tried to do is turn this into a more concrete, tangible description so that you can measure it. So my question to you is this. Could you now measure this person's performance? So, for example, would you see this person explaining the pros and cons of programming options in top-level terms first, and then in the detail of how an option would be implemented? Would you be able to see that and discern it?
Be able to observe that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, you need to be present, but you could see it.
Yes.
Would you see this person give examples of other pages where a similar solution has been used?
Yes.
You would. Would you be able to see them ask for feedback from other team members on which solution they favoured and if they had any other approaches?
I'm not quite understanding the question.
Would you be able to see the job holder ask for feedback from other team members?
Yes.
Because they'd be saying,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? What are your views on this? Give me some feedback. And would you be able to see this person, observe them, hear them, agree on the best way forward and divide up tasks according to the people's strengths?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
So on each one of these descriptions, you could actually now measure the person's performance.
Yeah.
It may take a few more words, it needs a little bit of thinking about, but what I've got you to do is to unbundle what a successful person does and use that as a way of communicating to any job holder that has this responsibility what you would like to see them do. Could you explain it to them?
Yes.
Would you imagine them agreeing to that? It's not unreasonable.
They would agree, yeah.
Yeah, and it would also be clear to them so that when you come to review it, you're both looking at the same descriptions and interpreting them in the same way.
Yeah, I think that would help them.
So if you were able to do something similar to this for all your 75% of other items not well defined, that would in fact clarify the whole job requirement to that person and make managing them much easier for you.
Okay, I think so.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Bit of work up front, but it would make a big difference to you and them. And that's what we're talking about.